What's up, everybody? Okay, all right, I'm back. This is something a little bit different, but I love film. I'm currently writing a comic book called Bloodworld, which I can't wait to show y'all. Like I said, next year, early mid next year, it'll come out, and I think you guys will be very impressed by it because there's a lot of things that, look. I mean, I'm the best hip hop reviewer on YouTube, and I'm actually pretty good at film too. So I just understand. I think I like good storytelling, and I'm very, obviously very critical of stuff, and I'm the same way with my own. So I hope that I can come with something that y'all will really appreciate. Anyways, it's coming. But I'm always very interested in this topic about the moment that pop culture dies. Look, I call myself Tochstradamus from time to time. Even y'all will be saying in the comment section like, yo, told you called this. And it's like, yeah, I called this. I'm starting to really just strut my shit in a way because a lot of things that people are just figuring out are things I said literally 20 years ago. And people looked at me like I was crazy. And for a while I was like, well, okay, maybe I am being a little like, maybe I am crazy and stuff like that. But as I get older, I start to realize if you're somebody who's smart, I'm a smart person, okay? I come from a very smart group of people, and I'm not saying that to be arrogant. That's just the truth of the matter, right? And I am open to new ideas. I'm happy to be wrong about things. That's how people get smarter, is that they learn and they try to observe things for what they are, and if they're wrong, they course correct. And I'm happy to do that. And then, unfortunately, a fair amount of people are not willing to do that. Anyway, my point is this. I don't second guess myself as much anymore, and I certainly just say things, and I just say it for what it is because I've had the opportunity. I've been lucky. I've moved around a lot. I've seen a lot of shit, and I'm just gonna start saying stuff as it is. Just is what it is, man. So, anyway, I saw this video. I don't know how it came up to me because Matt Walsh is not somebody that I follow at all. Okay. But he had this video. He was talking about the exact moment when pop culture died. He makes this argument that in 2007 to 2008 is the peak of, let's say he says monoculture. And then essentially movies go downhill after that and become terrible, right? Let's hear what he has to say.
Not only came out in the same year, but also it just so happens were filmed at the same time in the same town, only miles apart from each other. But there was more. There's a lot more.
Oh, you're sorry.
Usually work. You don't notice them until you've already started, the descent. You started going over the other side.
That's right.
But that was the zenith. That was the top of the mountain. 2007 saw the release of two of the greatest films ever made, There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men, which...
Matt, you fucked up, okay? You're barely a minute in and you already fucked up. Anyway, let's see what you have to say.
Not only came out in the same year, but also it just so happens were filmed at the same time in the same town, only miles apart from each other. Mm-hmm. But there was more. There's a lot more. The David Fincher masterpiece Zodiac released in 2007. So did Michael Clayton.
Oh, Zodiac and Michael Clayton. Okay, so those are movies that you would put up with the best movies you've ever heard ever. You'd put those up against The Godfather, The Matrix, American Beauty, Goodfellas, Scarface, Sense and Sensibility. I mean, are we doing this right now? Shit, even Jurassic Park, you would put Michael Clayton up there with that, or no?
George Clooney film, Into the Wild.
Zodiac, Into the Wild. Oh, okay. Superbad.
Superbad, the last good teen comedy.
Superbad. Oh, Superbad. So, Superbad, you would say is the greatest comedy ever? Better than Superbad, better than Beverly Hills Cop, better than Coming to America. I mean, what if for y'all who are into comedies, Superbad is when comedy peaked. That's the best comedy we've ever seen.
Night, The Wrestler, Tropic Thunder, which was one of the last great comedies of any type to be made by Hollywood. We get a few more decent comedies between 2009 and 2013, and that would be it.
Okay, so I completely disagree with Matt Walsh here. Now, I agree in the sense that there has been a major fall off in films and backsliding. And I said this a while ago, but people were like, you're a hater and all the stuff. Fair enough. But I noticed this, and I'm going to be so real with you. I noticed this the moment I saw No Country for Old Men. and I think I saw There Will Be Blood shortly after. Okay? And when I watched people in the business and outside dick ride the hell out of these two movies, I went, what is going on? Because these movies are not that great. Now, they're made well enough, right? I'm not going to say that No Country for Old Men is a bad movie. There Will Be Blood also I wouldn't necessarily say is a bad movie. It's clearly the craft is there. No Country for Old Men in particular, There Will Be Blood, I don't really remember much, but No Country for Old Men has these like sort of terrifying scenes, and you're always on edge when you're watching it. And again, it's well crafted. Okay? However, it is not a movie that I would argue most people would ever want to go back to watching, for the simple reason that it's extremely cynical. And this is really the issue that I think a lot of people didn't notice at the time, but I think we can't help but escape right now. And that is, these movies got extraordinarily cynical. And really, No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood was like a, 1-2 punch of cynicism. And it was like, people sort of looked at it and went, oh, this is like reality. This is like life. This is realism. And then we just went down this path of cynical ass movies. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't go to the movies to see cynicism, right? For those of y'all who don't know much about cynicism, or let me explain it, it's fine. Cynicism is a negative outlook characterized by deep distrust of others' motives, a belief that people are motivated by selfishness, and a general lack of hope for humanity. Here's my problem with this, right? I'm not saying that you always have to be, have the happy ending in every film and things like that. But I think cynicism has destroyed Hollywood films and TV shows, frankly, and actually film and music too, because we started seeing a lot of that stuff. Kanye brought that shit into Eminem. A lot of these guys brought that into music too, which is why we start to see all this sort of dark, negative covers, ugly covers, and all this kind of shit in hip hop too. Cynicism masked as realism has destroyed modern entertainment. I think I made a comment here. Matt, No Country and There Will Be Blood gave us fake masterpieces, cynical and bleak, masquerading as realism, and it took us down the path of mediocrity from which we haven't recovered. And that's just my opinion. And the problem I have with cynicism, I think that you can be a little bit cynical. I think it's fair game to look at life with a bit of distrust. Again, I'm not naive. I think it's important to question people's motives. I think it's important to acknowledge that we are motivated by selfish desires, right? Human beings are selfish. I'm selfish, you're selfish, ultimately. However, this is where I differ, because I don't have a lack of hope in humanity. In fact, I hope for humanity. And I think that as much as humans we have a lot of tough things that go on in the world, we are getting better. Really and truly. I mean, we're not dying at the rate. If you look throughout history, the way that plagues would just destroy, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, right? Where you would have, again, I keep talking about Islam, you would have, slavers destroying and killing hundreds of millions of people, invasions and all that kind of shit. Like, again, it's not to say that those things aren't here today. Those things, in a way, will never go anywhere because it is in, unfortunately, human capacity to commit evil. But at the same time, it's also in human capacity to commit good. And that's why I think you just have to have a balanced approach. It's not about being cynical. It's not about being naive. It's a healthy mix of maybe both, if you want to look at it. And ultimately, when I go to watch a film, I want to leave the theater hopeful. I think most people, I would argue, want that feeling. Maybe a bunch of corny cinephiles and navel gazing film Twitter dweebs, shout out to my man Eric Weber, who's not that but who talks about that. Maybe they want to leave the movie theater feeling cynical and distrusting humanity, but the average person does not want that shit. Okay? Especially if we're paying top dollar to see these films, we want to walk away feeling, yeah, man, I'm glad I saw that. Yeah, man, I feel better about life. And again, it doesn't have to do with the ending. The ending can be negative. quote unquote, but it can still inspire hope. Again, I give you a perfect example of Scarface, right? Scarface is a tragedy. It ends with Scarface getting murked. Spoiler alert, but you should have seen Scarface by now. But the point is, Scarface is not a cynical movie, even though they're dealing with some really deep shit, negative shit, right? You have characters that constantly distrust each other, who are extraordinarily selfish, but even in the midst of all that, there is a certain charm, a certain life, a certain hope that you could be like Scarface, just correct the bad parts of him, if that makes sense. Like, no, don't be a drug addict. I actually don't even enter the drug game in general. But that belief in self, that confidence, that feeling of, hey, I see an opportunity and I like relentlessly pursue it and I succeed in it. That's, again, it's hopeful. And that humanity can do that and win. So again, when you leave Scarface, you don't leave Scarface having a negative outlook on the world. You leave Scarface thinking, you know what? Yeah, you know, Montana didn't do it the right way exactly, but I fuck with some of what he said. And he also had principles and morals, right? And I respect what he was doing. Again, there's a certain level of hope when you watch Gladiator. This is why we love Gladiator, and we will never like No Country for Old Men on the level of Gladiator. Because again, Gladiator ends, spoiler alert, with a negative ending, quote unquote, right? The character dies. But the hope is that a human being can do so much and put their life on the line for humanity and through the growth of him as a character and what he puts on the line, the whole of Rome benefits and humanity is better off for it. And ultimately, we hope that in the afterlife we can meet our loved ones. And when we see him meet his loved ones, that's why motherfuckers was crying in the movie theater, right? Because ultimately that's kind of the best you can hope for, right? So again, those movies had elements of realism in there where, yes, you saw characters like a bitch-ass Commodus, sorry, pardon my language, but one of the greatest villains ever, in my opinion, because he was just a complete loser. But we saw him absolutely motivated by selfishness. A lot of people are motivated by selfishness and greed and distrust. But again, the hero rose above it. Because and that's what movies, in my opinion, the great American movies, they reach into the hero in us and they ask us to rise above and be better people, ultimately. This is why American movies dominated for like a century. Okay? Americans wrote the best hero narratives we'd ever seen, when you think about it. And then somewhere in the last like 2 decades, shit started to slip, where it's like, actually, the hero doesn't win, and the hero will never win, and everyone's shit, and get yours, and blah, 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 blah. And that's where we have slid off, and that's why these movies are terrible. And of course, as you slide down that ladder into mediocrity, where everyone is out for self, that's when you start simping for terrorists and all this goofy shit. Okay? So, you can watch the rest of this video at your own time if you so choose, but I think Matt is very wrong. He does raise a good point in terms of his argument is, Obama getting elected, and that's why I don't follow Matt Walsh. His argument is, Obama ushered in this sort of like woke era, where in a sense you couldn't really, things were safe and you couldn't really talk about bad things or whatever. But he's looking at this as woke and anti-woke. But again, it's funny to me because I don't think he connects the dots. Cynicism ultimately, in my opinion, morphed into all that woke bullshit, because the woke shit is ultimately negative. It's a negative outlook on the world. It's, I have to be, my tribe versus the rest of the world, right? Woke is very tribal, quote unquote, again, right? The system is against me. It's just, we need equity because everyone's out to get us and we have to get what we can get, and we can cancel and destroy this person. If they say something we don't like, it's a complete cynicism, very motivated by selfishness, and definitely a general lack of hope for humanity. So again, these ideas go together, right? Like, this video is kind of interesting. I haven't seen all of it, but if you do get a chance to watch it, so it's always fascinating to me as somebody who grew up in Saudi Arabia, and again, a lot of people like me who grew up in repressive countries, we see this woke garbage for what it is. Because we see people in the first world complaining about, oh, I'm so depressed, I'm not free, blah 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 blah. Very negative outlook, and you're thinking to myself, oh my God, this is fucking paradise. You have constant electricity, you have food. The police aren't going to stop you and just shoot you in the face because you don't support a particular ruler. Right? I mean, these are basic things, and I'm sorry, but outside of the Western world, life gets quite dicey if you're not in the top 1%, right? So it's just interesting to see this. This is the negative outlook. Woke shit is negative, and this is what I think Matt missed entirely. Prior to this, and I would argue to me I've always said that anyways, rap music, anyways in particular, peaked in like 2003, 2004. Not that it was necessarily the best music, but once you started getting into that Kanye, Young Jeezy, very, very negative, cynical shit, ultimately, Eminem, Wayne, like that's when that shit started to fall off. And I think of movies, for example, let me see, best movies of 2004 for me. First and foremost is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I mean, I've said this, hands fucking down. In fact, I still think Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is the best movie I've seen since then. I don't think there's a single movie that's as good as this movie. And again, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is very real. And realism is great, but it's also fantastical, and it does have a romantic element, and it's ultimately hopeful. When you watch it, you do feel hopeful. You don't feel like, romance is garbage. Everything about love is terrible. Right? There is a romantic core to it. There's a hopeful core, and that's why we go to watch the movies, I would argue. The other movie from 2004 that's fantastic is Mean Girls. But again, think of Mean Girls, right? At the end of the day, when you watch Mean Girls, do you feel better about life or do you feel worse about life? Ask yourself that basic question, right? Now, 2005, I'm trying to remember what movies came out in 2005. That I watched. I mean, I saw this Shinobi Heart Under Blade. This is okay, but I'm into samurai shit like that. Sin City. It's interesting because I didn't care for this, and I found Sin City to be very cynical, actually. And so again, these things it was kind of creeping in. I don't know if it's because of that whole like the war in Iraq and that time period. Shit was just getting like really weird. I didn't care for Sin City at all. I come to think of it. But let's see, what other movies came out in 2005 that were popular? I mean, I'm talking about movies that you saw that people went, yeah, I'm so glad I saw that. I feel better about life. The Constant Gardener I saw, I don't remember anything about it. I mean, I'm sorry, but why is this so hard for me to figure out? That's what I'm talking about. Batman Begins was pretty good. That was okay. But you guys kind of see, I would argue 2003, 2004 is when a lot of this shit peaked, if you ask my honest opinion. But certainly, whenever cynicism grabbed a hold of us around that time with No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood, that's when we were in for a wild ride of garbage. And that's where we've been at for, who knows, the last 20 years. I want to talk about this because I tried to watch Meet Joe Black. Anyway, let me play it first, and then you guys will see. For those of y'all who've seen Meet Joe Black, I'd love to know your opinion. Listen to that music. Love this piece, man. Now, that's cinema, okay? I will say, I tried to watch this movie yesterday. This movie is dumb. This is actually one of the worst movies I think I've ever seen Brad Pitt in, and I haven't finished it. I don't know if I will finish it. So please don't take this as a recommendation to watch this movie. Like this, I burst out laughing. There's a part where, Brad Pitt, like, he starts doing like this, like patois. It's like, what is this? What is this bullshit? Oh my God, was this some money laundering? Like who wrote this shit? Anyway, this is not a good movie. And I saw the runtime, it was like 3 hours, like, whoa. Okay, I don't think I'm doing this. I'm not doing this. But anyway, the point is, even in bad movies like Meet Joe Black, which I would argue is a bad movie, okay? There are moments of beauty in there, okay? Like, that was a beautiful, like, now, the whole scene I thought was a little forced and corny. But at least that moment that I showed you towards the end has a romantic, beautiful, kind of like hopeful, intimate vibe, right? And these are the things that people remember, right? This is why people post these things and they talk about it and we still remember that shit. And the music and the score. Again, I noticed with a lot of these movies, especially from No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood, it's like the score was gone. All of a sudden, like, they would just, a lot of times there would be no score, or there'd be barely any score, and the score would be dark and fucking corny. I'm like sitting there going like, what is this shit? I'm used to Hans Zimmer and Thomas Newman and giving me these pieces that just move me. You know what I mean? Like, I would listen, like, I haven't seen Meet Joe Black before until, let's say, last night, but I've heard the Meet Joe Black score a gazillion times, right? So this is what I'm saying. Like, we need to get back to this love of humanity, okay? Ultimately, you have to have a love of humanity to do great shit. I don't think people really think about this stuff. The people that build, that do stuff, that contribute, that make great shit, they're not sitting there being cynical and having a negative outlook on life. Those are the whack niggas. Those are the whack artists. You think Nas made Illmatic with a negative outlook in life? No. He made it to all my peoples in Queens, God bless your life. Right? Positive outlook. You need that shit. The builders of the world have the positive outlook. They have hope for humanity, because otherwise, if they didn't, why would they build shit? You know what I'm saying? And this is why you have so many frauds in the film space and in the music space. A lot of these people are negative as fuck. They sell negative imagery. They're just negative. They give off negativity constantly. And I'm not even talking about subject matter, just emotionally. Their whole shit is negative, right? Tyler, the Creator. I don't even know why this guy's. What was the one? There was a picture I saw of this goofball doing some coon shit. Anyway, it's negative. Like, this is ugly, right? This is ugly, negative shit. It's supposed to, oh look, I'm so real. I'm a realism, right? And this is the trick that a lot of these low talented or untalented people have sold you, is that ugliness is realistic. It's realism. So that's why you should pay attention to me, because I represent the real person. But the real person ain't ugly like that. And you might be, but we ain't all ugly. Okay, so anyway, that's my opinion on that. Thanks for rocking with me as always. Let me know if you're welcome to disagree. You know me. I love a good conversation. So feel free to let me know. Chime in the comment section. And if you did see the rest of Meet Joe Black, should I continue? Because I gave up after that, like, hospital patois shit. Scene, I'm gonna make you or some shit. I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm good, Brad. Anyway, love y'all. Peace.